Recently in South Africa, we've seen an influx of these 9mm PAK blank firing pistols. They've become a unique irritation to gun shops all over the country who do not sell 9mm PAK. This week on Locked, Loaded and Lawful, we discuss the legalities of these 9mm PAK blank replica firearms. So, Johan Martin, we've got on the show again, as always. It's always good to have Johan on because he's got a wealth of knowledge. And how many years experience in the police, Johan?
22 years, Tim.
22 years, and you left the SAPS as a colonel, if I remember correctly.
Lieutenant Colonel, yeah.
Lieutenant Colonel.
They call it in Afrikaans halfbroek Colonel.
Halfbroek Colonel, Colonel, yeah. So we've got, as you've seen in the ad that we did about this episode, my ad was a little bit cheeky as well, and misleading, but it got people interested in these things. So what we're going to be talking about today is blank guns, and we're also going to be bringing up air rifles too. So things that people need to be aware of when it comes to these kind of things. So when it comes to blank guns, what is the current status about these blank guns, Johan?
Tim, daar was vroeër vanjaar 'n vergadering tussen die NDP, DPP, dis die nasionale vervolgingsgesag, en dan die polisie, waar tydens strenge regulering of moontlike verbod op blank guns bespreek was. Maar daar's nog geen finale besluit daaroor nie.
Okay, so they're still going to make a decision, but they are aware of it, so it's on their radar. And the NDPP is the National
Public Prosecution, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Director of Public Prosecutions is actually the DPP. Sorry for that.
The DPP. Okay, all right. So you mentioned that they haven't made any final decisions. Daar's nie resolusies of enige iets daaroor. But is there? So can you tell me about if you know about any pending resolutions that they've made?
Yeah, I'm just going to name them. Number one is cases of persons found in possession of modified blank guns, must continue to be enrolled. Modified blank guns are those whose barrel are reamed to a different caliber. It seems dangerous to do so, or we deem dangerous to do so. The reason is that blank pistols are smoothbores, never intended to shoot live ammunition. Number two is cases of persons found in possession of unmodified blank guns, bought over the counter, where these firearms were used in the commission of an offence, must continue to be enrolled. However, the accused is not to be charged with the unlawful possession of a firearm, but that the possession of the firearm is used to determine a charge inclusive of aggravating circumstances. Furthermore, we must take note of the provisions of Section 126 in brackets 6 in brackets B of the Firearms Control Act, which says the following. It is an offence to point anything which is likely to lead a person to believe that it is a firearm, an antique firearm, or an air gun at any other person without good reason to do so. Number three, cases of persons found in possession of unmodified blank guns bought over the counter and where the individual has committed no other offence should not be enrolled. Number four is cases of persons found in possession of unmodified blank firearms that are currently on the roll must be withdrawn. Om 'n sekere mate van beheer oor die 9mm blank en 9mm blank patrone uit te voer, is daar besluit om die ammunisie ingevolge die Wet op Ontplofbare Stowwe van 1956 te beheer.
So that's quite interesting. That tells me a few things about SAPs that they've started to pick up. That people are taking these because they're easy to access and easy to get hold of, and they're modifying them to shoot either a projectile, or they're reaming the barrel and putting rifling in so that it can shoot a caliber that's acceptable for it, which is very stupid because the pressures in any ammunition can make that barrel explode fast. And these things are made out of cheap mild steel, and you end up exploding that thing in your hand. And also the committing of crimes. I think they've realized that people are using these to commit crimes. So while they do say that it's not unlawful to have one of them and have one of them in your possession unless you're committing a crime, it seems that it is in the radar, on the radar for the police. And I've seen the police; they've posted it on their Twitter, their X
Mm.
account online, and they show
Yeah.
when they do arrest these, when they arrest criminals. Often you see these are used to commit armed robbery or hijacking. Um, it's going to be, I can say on a side, it's going to be a very, very bad day if someone pulls a blank gun on me and I've got my adrenaline pumping and I can't tell the difference between the two. He can bang, bang, bang at me as much as he wants. Maar hy gaan loodvang.
Yeah. Another thing is that some, I'm not, a few of them, security companies used to issue these type of blank guns to the security guards, and it happened previously. But I think the industry is clean. If I say clean, I mean they don't do it anymore. But it happened.
That's frightening. So you pay for an armed response service, and then you get old Albel Pete Constable rocking up at your house when you've got a break in, and unfortunately the bad guys have got a real gun, and he's got a little a speelgeweer. Um, so the Explosives Act, die wat is dit in Afrikaans dat ek bietjie dis die plofstof wet, ek dink.
Yes.
You mentioned that and you sent me a document about it from the explosives unit. So let's quickly pull that up on screen and see what that says. And as far as I know, this is the first time for the viewers. This is the first time that this document is going to be seen. We've got two such documents that haven't been out in the public domain, and the public doesn't know about it. So you're going to be seeing it for the first time as well. Let's quickly just get that up and make sure we've got the right. Let me get the right one on here. Let's see. There we go. There it is. Let's pull it up nice and big on the screen.
Yes, that's a correct one, Tim.
Yeah, so what is it say? Control over explosives, articles, and substances used with the devices not deemed to be firearms in terms of Section 5 of the Firearms Control Act. So here we go. It mentions, I see it's got explosive power tool cartridges, so they're your Hilti blanks. Explosive power tool cartridges used to break a rock. Dit lyk amper asof dis 'n halgeweer patroon. Flare guns, black powder and percussion caps, and then captive bolt guns. Yeah. So what can you tell us about these about this document?
Well, thank you, Tim. It seems to me as if the guys selling this on a web page tend to say it's a sort of a flare gun, but you need a component in the front of this blank gun to actually shoot a flare gun. But that's the closest that they could get to a blank gun. Now, this diagram says that the Chief Inspector of Explosive regulates all explosive articles used with devices in terms of the Explosive Act 26 of 1956. It also got the old regulations of 1972 that actually mandate the SAP, the police explosive section at the component criminal record and crime scene management of the division, detectives and forensic services. There are controls in place through this Explosive Act because it says dealers are issued with licenses in terms of Section 7. Importers are issued with import permits in terms of Section 7 of this Explosive Act. Storage facilities are licensed in terms of Section 6. Dealers are issued with continuous transport permits to obtain blank and pepper cartridges from suppliers to their storage facilities, and it's regulated by Regulation 6.1.1. So everything is above board there. Dealers are subject to inspection by inspectors of explosives. Dealers must keep registers in which the details of the users are recorded, and users are not issued with permits themselves. Dealers currently registered on the commercial explosive system, it's a CES, they call it, blank cartridges. Dealers that's dealing in blank cartridges, 16 of them countrywide, and dealers dealing with blank pepper cartridges, there are 10 of them.
Okay, that's quite interesting too. So they are semi-regulated, the seller themselves, not the end user necessarily, but there is a register. And unfortunately, we know how SAPS is when it comes to registered, unless it's flash and they want to make everyone's life difficult on a certain day and go in and do a raid on a poor unsuspecting gun store that's kept their register clean for the last 20 years. I'm not so sure about these guys, but hopefully they pay close attention to these registers and who's buying the stuff. Um, I suppose it's also just an information gathering exercise for them.
Yeah.
So then the controls in place we've obviously talked about. So there is certain regulations and that sort of stuff involved. So far as it seems, you are legal to buy the actual, let's put it in inverted commas, the blank gun itself, because it's not a firearm, and you're entitled to buying the PAK blank cartridges as well, and 9mm PAKs
From a registered dealer, yeah, with the
from a
explosives
registered
act, yeah.
dealer. Yeah, so if you look at sites like takealot.com, sorry for calling them out, but takealot.com at one stage was selling these things, and I think they were alerted to the fact that you needed to make a record of these things, and also their delivery drivers aren't, as far as I know, they wouldn't be qualified to transport explosives on their vehicles, so they were acting unlawfully at one point. So hopefully
Yes,
their legal services have dealt with that.
yeah.
So with that in mind, that Sepsis has this on their radar, and that they've been paying attention to these things because of the certain dangers, or they're seeing a lot of criminals using them, or people are modifying them. Have they decided to, as they do often, is changes to the law? Have they decided to do that?
Tim, it's pretty long ago they tried to promulgate the Wet of Springstof 2003 already. It's Act number 15 of 2003. It's still not promulgated. Alhoewel die nuwe wet, die huidige wet op oplosbare stowwe van 56 gaan herroep, het dit nog nie gebeur nie, van 2003 af. Dan sien artikel 35 van wet 15 van 2003, so ons praat op hierdie stadium nog van konsepwet en konsepregulasies, wat is gedurende 2005 en 2007 in die Staatskoerant gepubliseer vir openbare kommentaar. Die derde stel konsepregulasies is gedurende April hierdie jaar by die polisie se regsafdeling ingedien, en ons wag vir goedkeuring deur die minister van polisie vir die finale publikasie vir kommentaar. Weer 'n keer kommentaar lewer. So ek dink ons is op die hond se rug om die finale verandering in 'n nuwe wetgewing wat onder 'n nuwe wetgewing en die regulasies omvat gaan word. En
Yeah, and
dit kan die hele prentjie verander.
it looks like the SAPs like to take their time when it comes to certain laws, and people don't realize that when laws do come out, it does take a hell of a long time for it to be implemented, unless it's the Firearms Control Act, which they like to they want
Ja,
to try
ja.
and sneak over into us when it's Christmas time and no one's paying attention, and then by January they've already put out
That was
regulations on
scary.
a
That
new.
was a scary one. That was a
That
scary
was yeah. For those that don't know, SAPS was trying to write into the Firearms Control Act that Section
Yeah.
13 firearms, which is your self-defense firearms, be taken away as a reason to own a firearm. So they wanted to make it that
Yeah.
you can't own a firearm for self-defense, which is in this country is frightening.
Yeah.
It's very, very scary. But I remember I was involved in that campaign, and we made everyone aware. It was I worked all the way through Christmas to try and I think everyone was just working hard to get that sorted out.
It was
So
not a very thought through action from yeah.
there's gonna be problems if they try that again, and we've been paying close attention to it. And the Civilian Secretariat, I think, is whispering about it again. But we're gonna be keeping an eye on that, and obviously at Legally Armed, we're going to let everyone know if there are any changes that happen, and if you need to get submissions in, we will all do that and make sure it happens. So if you want that explosive units diagram, we'll post it onto our Facebook page, on Legally Arms Facebook page. And if you need the information, I'll put some emails at the end of the podcast, and you guys can go and send an email out to either Johan or Barnu from Legally Armed, and they'll gladly send it over to you. But it will be on our Facebook page as well. So as things stand, blank firing guns with the 9mm PAK, and if you buy them from a registered dealer, they are lawful for now. But just be aware that you cannot use them to commit a crime, which should be going without saying. So the problem, I want to talk a little bit about some of the maybe a problem that I have with these guns, and this is my personal opinion. And some of these guns I've seen are quite expensive. You're looking at like up to 50 rand a 9mm PAK round, and then the gun itself goes from anything between 1,800 rand all the way up to, I think I've seen some as expensive as 9,000 rand. And the interesting thing about that, and that bothers me, is that people are going to be willing to spend that. People have been willing to spend that much money on these things when they could have saved a lot more, gone and got a firearms proficiency done, and a firearms competency, and actually gotten a real firearm, so that when they are in trouble, they actually have a means to defend themselves. I have a big problem with people calling these things self-defense blank firearms. You're not going to defend anything, when you buy and use these things. And criminals are getting very clever. If someone jumps over your wall to try and break into your house, and you come out with your blank speelgoed, and you point it at him, and he's got a real gun, you're going to catch lead. And if he's clever and the cops get there, he can turn around and easily just say, I thought I was going to my friend's house, and this guy just pointed a gun at me, so I shot him in self-defense. Then you've got big problems. You're not defending yourself with something that just goes bang.
Yeah.
Grow up and get a real firearm, and that's your best method of self-defense. And for all things that are good and precious and wonderful in this world, a man does not buy a blank firearm for his wife for self-defense and then also carries a Glock. If you love your wife, you're not going to buy a blank firearm. You will get her a real firearm.
It
So
doesn't make sense. Yeah.
it doesn't make sense at all. I don't understand people sometimes. They get these weird and wonderful ideas around a braai with a brandewyn. And then we've got a problem. So the next thing that we're going to talk about, while we're on things that aren't firearms but are closely related to the firearms world, when I was little, my first sort of exposure to a firearm or shooting was my dad took me out to the shooting range. And pay attention when I say this. He took me out to the shooting range, and he took his pellet gun with him, and that he had when he was a child, and he let me shoot his pellet gun on the shooting range, not in the backyard, on the shooting range, when I was a kid, and that was my first sort of exposure to shooting. So we might as well bring that up and talk about air guns, because I see you can get 5.56 millimeter air guns now that are shooting high calibers. The Americans, I know, hunt with them. They're hunting with up to 50 caliber sized air guns. They're becoming incredibly powerful. I saw a guy with a semi-automatic 308 caliber air gun that was shooting out to far distances and getting good penetration. So what are the regulations around these sort of things in South Africa, Johan?
Well, I don't know if this letter that we're going to deal with, Tim, is in the domain. It was issued by the General Sitole on the 31st of December 2020. And I remember that was also during the amnesty period. And I think the reason for issuing this letter is that to give the guys with the big bore air guns time to then also hand them in and apply for amnesty. And I think that was a very a good reason behind issuing of this letter. So I see if you've put it on the screen for us.
Yes.
A contact in the police sent it to me, and they said it should have been in the domain, but there it is at this stage. So maybe I can I'm just going to discuss the most important paragraphs of this letter. Can I continue with that, Tim?
Yes, yeah, go for it.
Um, Paragraph 1 says this circular aims to foster a proper understanding of the application of the definition of an airgun and when an airgun is considered to be a firearm. Paragraph 3 says, in terms of Section 5, in brackets 1, in brackets F of the Firearms Control Act, airguns are not classified as firearms and are therefore exempt from control. It need therefore not to be licensed and can be imported and sold to anyone. If you can remember correctly, Tim, before the promulgation of the new Act 60 of 2000 on the 1st of July 2004, air rifles was licensed. They were
Yes.
licensed. Calibers then smaller than, as we have a definition here, smaller than a .22, and now needs to be deregulated according to the new Act. We're talking about the new Act. And airgun paragraph 4 says an airgun is defined in the Act as it means any device manufactured to discharge a bullet or any other projectile of a caliber less than 5.6, that means less than .22, or at the muzzle energy of less than 8 joules, by means of compressed gas and not by means of burning propellant. So it's anything bigger and more joules are actually called big bore air guns, and they are illegal. Devices which are commonly, paragraph 5 says, devices which are commonly referred to as big bore air guns are in fact regarded as firearms in terms of the Act and falls within the definition of firearm, being any device bigger than .22 and more put out more energy than 8 joules with compressed gas and not by means of propellant. In the circular, paragraph 9 to 11 explains that air guns that are imported are not properly inspected by customs officials always, not every time. More specifically, notice is not taken by the customs officials of the caliber and the muzzle energy of those imported air guns. Paragraph 12 mentions barrels or tubes also, as it is commonly known, are also imported and sold, which allows for an air gun to be converted to a big bore air gun and shouldn't be allowed. Examples in paragraph 13, examples are given of big bore air guns, and there's many. I've done a study before we're doing this podcast. There are many videos on big bore rifles and handguns and semi-automatic rifles by American people that's using them and shooting anything from small to big animals. They call about the Seneca big bore, 44909 Light Hunter PCP. It's one of them. And then a Hudson Barrage semi-automatic, as you mentioned just now, 5.5.
Mhm.
And there's many others also. I just checked some videos. It's scary. And then paragraph 14 of the circular says a table then sets out a typical caliber marking found on airguns or firearms and explains which of them are airguns and which of them are bore guns. It's very important that people check on the circular. And then number 15, paragraph 15 says consignments of air guns or air rifles identified as big bore guns, which are not accompanied with an import permit issued in terms of this Act, must not be cleared at the port of entry, and upon discovery of non-compliance, the matter must be reported to the National Priority Violent Crimes Bureau. That's a national office in Pretoria. And then lastly, paragraph 16 mentions the names and contact numbers of officers that can be contacted at this national unit if there's a non-compliance at the port of entry.
Okay, so we've got the circular as well, and I'll make sure it gets posted up onto the Facebook page for everyone to read too. Or you can also email Johan or Barnu at the emails will be at the end of the podcast. So interesting stuff about these things. So let's say I want to get a Hudson Barrage semi-auto 5.5. Is there a permit that needs to be used to bring it into the country, and then it has to be licensed with the firearms with the FCR or with the
Yes,
CFR?
exactly, Tom.
Okay, so it gets licensed like an actual firearm.
Yeah, I don't think, I'm not sure if there are some of them already licensed. I didn't check on that, but surely then what comes into play is it should have a serial number and it should then also be treated as a .22 and higher caliber.
Yes, yeah, and that makes sense. And people think that a pellet gun is or an air gun is not a powerful thing. Go and have a look, like Johan said, on YouTube, and have a look at these guys are hunting big game with these things. Wild boar, they're hunting wild boar. They're hunting elk, deer.
Yep.
They're hunting moose.
Yeah, I checked on a video where a guy, where the hunter actually, I think it was a light hunter rifle, uh, actually hunted different antelope in South Africa, and they made videos of the actual hunt. But he was trying to get a kudu, but it was evasive. Otherwise, he would have also hunted a kudu.
Yeah, no, kudus are always going to be evasive. You see them and then you don't see them, or
Yeah,
they're right in front of you and you don't see them at all, and then you get a skrik when it jumps when it jumps away. I've had that so many times. Ek het in Kroonstad gebly and I had kudus that would jump over the fence, and I had a high fence, 6 meter, 2 meter fence for them is ag, dis niks. Hulle staan
nothing.
net langs hom en dan gaan hulle oor. But yeah, as always, Johan, thanks so much for the information that you're giving, and then for the viewers, we're going to be putting those circulars up so that people can read them and share the news. So two things that if you can take it out of it, that air guns are not unregulated. There are certain categories that are very regulated, and you will be found to be in unlawful possession of these things. I'm not sure of the prosecution status and how they prosecute, but we'll obviously find out more about that as things come to light. And then blank firearms, even though you can buy them and they are lawful, um, it's our opinion that it's not a very good idea to buy one for self-defense, because you're not going to be defending anything. You're just going to be making a noise, and it's not ideal for that sort of thing. So as always, Johan, thank you so much for being here and so early. It was quite an early one this morning. We were scheduled to record the episode yesterday, but then I ended up with a surprise load shedding and we couldn't do it. But as always, it's really great to have your opinion and that get that information out to the viewers.
Thank you so much, then.
And we'll put Johan's details for his for Martin and De Beer incorporated on the end of the podcast so that people can take a look. And if you do need to get hold of an attorney that specializes in firearms specifically, you're welcome to contact Johan, or you can contact Legally Armed Head Office. And just a reminder to our viewers that Legally Armed has specific insurance for firearm owners in the country that's very unique. It's the first of its kind. If you're on a hunting trip and you drop your rifle and your scope breaks, this covers these kind of things. Tune in next week for our next episode. We'll get some more informative stuff for everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Johan.
Thank you.